Life doesn't always go according to plan. Sometimes it breaks you. After a training accident left me paralysed from the neck down, I had to rebuild my body, my mind and my life. I'm Ryan Curtis, and every episode we dig into the chaos that shapes who we become. Before we get into the episode, it'd mean the absolute world to us if you could follow or subscribe on whatever platform you're currently listening to this on. For you guys, it's just a small click of the button, but for us, it's huge to grow the podcast, to get bigger guests on and have more interesting conversations for you. Thanks so much and enjoy the episode. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to this episode of Made in Chaos with me, Ryan Curtis. On today's episode, we have Pennie. 15 years addicted to heroin, lying to everyone around him, slowly destroying his own life while his mind convinced him he was beyond saving. Most people would hear that story and assume it ends one way, but somehow he rebuilt everything. Today, he has a PhD in neuroscience, lectures in some of Ireland's top universities, speaks around the world, and helps people understand the psychology of addiction, trauma, anxiety, and change. But this conversation isn't just about heroin. It's about the voice in your head, the chaos people hide from, why so many people numb themselves every single day, and what actually has to happen before a human being can truly change. So Brian, usually I actually like to get straight into it, but I think your story is really interesting. Do you mind just touching on a little bit of your story?
Yeah, no, but Ryan, it's funny, right? So if you look at my story, it looks like a story of addiction.
Yeah.
I was addicted to heroin for 15 years, but it's not a story of addiction really for me. Like, the drugs were just a symptom of an underlying problem, which was trauma, anxiety and panic attacks. That's what I was doing. I was literally numbing, I was anaesthetising myself, and I suppose for me, there was a couple of multiple traumas in my life early doors. I actually had an operation as a baby without a general anaesthetic.
Right, okay.
So it's quite shocking, especially when mothers hear that story. But prior to 1985, the medical practice was that they didn't give general anaesthetics to babies. So they went under the knife while they were awake. They believed wrongly that babies didn't experience pain like normal adults, and they wouldn't really remember the trauma or the pain or the experience. But like, I've told this story thousands of times, and right now, even again, I feel a little urge to rub the scar on my belly. Like,
really?
Yeah, it's mad. It's like just a little bit of an urge just to give it a little rub, like, you know, that way. And what we know from trauma today is like that they say the body keeps the score.
Yeah, I was gonna actually, the book, it's a great book.
So there's just like, there was a deep anxiety within me around that. And then, like, my mum and dad, my family are bleeding. They're legends, they are. They're lovely, lovely people, but they were alcoholics. Right. So I grew up as a kid, very anxious, afraid of my own inner body from the childhood, the baby trauma. Then I was very aware and very worried. My mum and dad drinking, my dad being a drink driver. And I just remember just being constantly afraid as a kid, anxious, but not showing it to anybody. And I remember I was very lucky to meet and talk and work with Dr. Gabor Mate of all people. Incredible. He read me book, right?
No way, did he actually read your book?
He inhaled me book.
No way, that's
He told me about my greatest trauma from reading my book that I wasn't even aware of, right? And he says to me, Brian, right, you had the pain as a baby, you had the terror as your mum and dad drinking when you were younger. He says, but who did you tell about that pain? And I says, absolutely no. And he says, that's your biggest trauma. He says, for you were all alone, you were lonely, you were isolated, you had no one to talk to. And he says, that was your greatest trauma. And it was funny because where I grew up, it was like, even as a young kid.
Where did you grow up actually?
Blanchardstown,
okay.
It was a crazy spot, a lovely community. It was Mulhuddart, Ladieswell was the name of the area at the time. But like, so much violence, so much drugs and deaths. Like, It was a very, very dodgy place at the time, but great community at the same time, you know. But that was the biggest challenge that I faced that I wasn't aware of, because I wouldn't even admit to myself that I was messed up with anxiety and afraid, let alone tell anyone else.
But yeah, you probably would have been conscious about it though, or would you have?
Conscious and unconscious at the same time. Do you know what? I was like, I thought that this is the way everyone was.
Yeah.
I just thought everyone sort of felt a little bit like this. And I just sort of got on with it, that way. And outwardly, like, I played football. I went on little holidays. I laugh on holidays. We went to Donaghbate and Portrane for the holidays. I was only up in Donaghbate. Me brother moved up there. But just constantly afraid. And I started dabbling with drugs at around 14 years of age. I found heroin at 16. And it was like the anaesthetic I never got as a baby. And I remember it just it quietened my mind. It softened everything. And I just like... where have you been all my life? And that was pretty much game over for me. I ended up chronically addicted to heroin until I was 35 years of age.
16 you found her at, yeah? It was...
Yeah.
What was it like, just with friends, or what way did it come about?
It was mad. So we were mad into the Doors and Jim Morrison and Bob Dylan. We listened to all that music and big into Jim Morrison, and we thought we were poets and all this bullshit, you know what I mean? And Jim Morrison had this mantra, try everything once.
Right.
So he says, right, Jim, we'll try everything once. We'll do heroin once, you know what I mean?
Just to see it.
Yeah, just to see what it's like.
We'll give it a go.
Give it a go, yeah. But like 100%, I couldn't get strung out. I thought it was too good to get strung out, you know? And we all did. Like, we weren't like, let's say there's different gangs in the estate, and be people that'd be a bit more traumatised than others, but I see myself as someone that was going to go to school, do well in school. I was good at football. I was going places. In my head, I was going places. And another good friend of mine, I wrote about him in the book, we'll call him Barry again, but my best mate, partner in crime. And there was 6 or 7 of us that done heroin for the first time. And only me and Barry got strung out. And we were the two that had the emotional challenges, the anxieties and stuff like that. So it was like it dug its hooks into us, and poor Barry, he's still in the depths of it, you know what I mean? But I got lucky in 2013.
Yeah, it's because obviously it's been through my own family, heroin in particular as well, you know, and like that, I've seen it go through, and I think, like, because that was one thing that I was wondering, do you think, like, it's more about taking heroin and even drugs in general? Do you think it's more about the escape than it actually is about the drugs themselves?
Yeah, I think the nature of addiction is escape and avoid. And like, you talk about rewards, like any behaviour, any habits, like if you eat chocolate, it tastes good, you'll want to eat it again. You're driven and motivated to do it again. And that's how, like, bad habits can kick in, addictions can kick in. Behaviour that's rewarded is repeated. But we often think as rewards of getting something, money, chocolate, alcohol. But the bigger rewards is escaping the pain. That's a reward. It's called reinforcement, but negative reinforcement is like the removal of something bad is the reward. So if you're struggling with like stress and anxiety and depression and pain, and all of a sudden you take this drug, be it cocaine, crack or heroin, and it removes that pain, you feel incredible. You get the high, you get the endorphin rush, but it's also taking all that pain away. So your brain's going to say, like, this is the thing, like, 'cause I obviously went on and studied the human brain in a PhD in neuroscience. So I'm fascinated with the human brain, and my fascination came with the struggles that I had. But like, the brain doesn't care about happiness or money or success. It cares about avoiding pain and chasing pleasure. Right. And that's why I've been caught up with money and getting addictions to buying stuff and stuff, because it gives you that sense of pleasure. But the brain doesn't really care about your inner peace or your happiness. It cares about avoiding pain and chasing pleasure. And if you avoid pain with a certain drug, the brain's going to say, let's go back to that, pal. And
do you think that's like more like about not confronting the issues in your life because it's painful to do that? Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, well, like, look at it this way,
it's very uncomfortable to go, do you know what, this is your fault, or, you know, you've been through this, let's confront it.
Yeah, sit with the difficult
emotions. The
ostrich
effect almost, you know, just bury your head in the stand.
And we even call it, like, look at drugs, we say it's a quick fix, because the long fix, that's what you're talking about, they're sitting with the shit, man.
It's very
if you're giving the quick fix or the sitting with the pain, that's not rewarding, where the quick fix is rewarding, and that's why people go towards that. But the real work is really about sitting with the challenges, sitting with the trauma, speaking to people. For me, it was sitting with those bodily sensations. Like, I talk about wanting to rub the scar on my belly. Like, I can sit with that. Like, I grew up with this phobic fear of me heartbeat, me breath and me pulse. Like, until I was 35 years of age, when I was going to sleep, I'd have to have the telly very loud, because if I got a sense of me pulse or me blood or me heartbeat, I'd have a near panic attack. I was terrified of my own inner body. And when I found recovery, for many years, I couldn't even put my hand on my heartbeat. Couldn't do it.
Right. Where do you think that came from?
I'd say as a baby, so I had that operation, right? So I was in, nearly died, had the operation, and for a couple of weeks I was in an incubator. So obviously separated from my mum and dad as well.
Yeah.
But then there was complications from the surgery. So my mum says I literally cried for the first 18 months of my life in the buggy. My mum used to be like that all the time. My aunties used to tell me she was just rocking the pram all the time. But she went to the doctor one day and she says, he just won't stop crying. And he says, look, you'll be crying if you're experiencing what he was experiencing. And I wasn't given any pain meds or anything like that. So I often thought to myself, imagine as a baby, like where you're much more in tune with bodily sensations. So I was probably like feeling those bodily sensations, hearing me heartbeat as a baby, but experiencing the pain. So I associated the pain with the sensations, and I just grew up with this fear of my own in our body. And even today, like in my 40s, there's an essence of that still there, but I can sit with my emotions, I can sit with my bodily pain, but it's never going to be like completely calm and comfortable for me. I'll never be a Dalai Lama or anything like that, you know what I mean? But I've managed to
What do
navigate
you think has helped you to be able to do that?
Mindset was a big thing. I've reframed a lot of stuff in my life. Like the biggest reframe in my life, right? My belief was when I was pre-addiction or pre-recovery that I can't cope with anxiety. I was just like, I can't cope with this. Give me drugs.
You used to tell yourself that?
I used to tell myself that, or just that was the narrative I wasn't even aware of. Back then, if you said to me, what's the narrative? I'd say, what are you talking about? Give me drugs, fuck off. Like, get away from me. But that's what it was. I can't cope with this. I wouldn't admit it to myself, so I wasn't really aware. But our beliefs determine our consequences.
Yes.
So can't cope, give me drugs. I've completely reframed this. Now, it used to be a story I told myself, but it's something I fundamentally believe, because sometimes I reflexively lean into challenges. My belief today is that challenges don't stop me. They fuel my ability to thrive. And when something really hard comes into my life, I'm like, how can I learn from this? What can I get from this? And even though it's uncomfortable, and I was uncomfortable sitting with those bodily sensations, I remember for months on end, I used to sit with my hand on my heartbeat, listening to my heartbeat, very, very uncomfortable. But I used to just practice a sense of calm. I've practiced breathwork techniques. I meditated for years, exercise, nature. All of these things that we all know about but don't do. But I think the difference with myself was I done it. I put the action in, and that's what I did, you know.
Yeah. It's like you're even saying there, like, you know, it was just all about just getting more drugs, and you probably wouldn't even be conscious about that. Like, you know, what do you think most people kind of get confused about addiction?
Oh, the biggest thing, right? So there's kind of like 3 theories of addiction, you could say, right? The first one is the choice theory, and it's like people are morally weak. That's bad choice.
Yeah.
They had a choice. They didn't have to take the drugs. And right, like ultimately everything's a choice. Like if you're parching and there's a bucket of water in front of you, and the hours and hours go by and you're heated up or whatever, let's say a thought experiment, and let's say after 10, 12, 20, 30 hours, you're eventually going to drink that water. Was it a choice? You know, your biology was screaming to drink that water.
Yes.
If you had an itch that got worse and worse and worse over the course of a year, you eventually scratched that itch. Was it a choice? Kind of, you know what I mean? But if your pain is so deep and your reality is so painful, and there's drugs or substances out there that will give you just a little bit of relief, that's not a choice, like, you know what I mean? It's absolutely inevitable. And I remember, like, a brilliant therapist that I knew. She's an academic as well, Dr. Von Barnes-Holmes. When she heard my story, and she was a mentor of mine for a while, she said it was absolutely inevitable that you were going to end up on drugs. Your body was seeking some kind of escape. So the choice theory is bullshit. Like, if you take a person that thinks, oh, it's just a bad choice, and you put them into a very dark place with the availability of drugs, they would make that same choice. So the choice theory is bullshit. People often think then it's biological. And there's an element of biology, but they say like addiction's genetic. Oh, my granddad was an alcoholic, my dad was an alcoholic, I'm an alcoholic, it must be in the genes. But the granddad was traumatised. The dad was traumatised because the granddad was traumatised.
Yeah.
You're traumatised because your dad was traumatised because your granddad was traumatised. It's the trauma that carries through the generations. So while there's a biological element of like your temperament or your sensitivity is biological, and your susceptibility to, I suppose, trying to escape some kind of torment in the body. There's something biological there. But ultimately, it's environmental. And this is what people get wrong about addiction. It's environmental. That if your environment and your social conditions and your programming develop in a certain way in life, you are so much more susceptible to addictive tendencies. And that's the big thing people get wrong.
And what do you think with like people who grow up in certain households and some people are on drugs and some people are not? As I do often think about that because of the drug addiction in my family, and then I never done drugs. But it's not, like I said, like when I was a kid and I didn't really understand, I used to look and go like, why would you do that? But obviously I just didn't understand the thought process behind it, you know what I mean? Now that was like wrong.
Yeah.
Obviously when I was a kid I didn't think as deep into things as I do now. I was just like, oh, why would you do that? Do you know?
So do you know what's interesting? Two people come to mind when you say that, Ryan. It's yourself, right? And it's Philly McMahon. Philly McMahon,
Right.
the guy player, right? So his brother,
no, Philly,
the great fella.
Yeah.
And Philly, when he called his book was a great book, The Choice.
Yeah.
So he went down the guy path, and his brother went down the heroin path. And you've had family members in the same boat as well. Would you say yourself and Philly were a little bit obsessed with your sport, your craft?
Yeah,
probably a bit of a coping mechanism as well.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think for some people, it's like, call it a positive addiction, you know, that way, but it's a way to cope with the challenges in a different way. And I met someone else, a fella called Justin Carfrey. Be happy enough for me to chat about this. Justin's a great fella, and Justin had the same operation as me, and we're nearly the same age. But Justin got addicted to business, and he says he became a horrible egomaniac that stood on people's heads to get where he was. He says he was addicted. So I chose heroin, my circumstance, because I was in an area of drugs, but he was in a more, let's say, privileged arena. So he chose business. But we were both still escaping. We were both avoiding our inner bodies, you know, that way. So it just really depends. And sometimes there's psychological factors. Sometimes someone could have a mentor that can guide them in a different direction. So addiction is very complicated.
Yeah.
And I did say it was inevitable that I would get into addiction. They weren't really my words. So I wouldn't say inevitable is probably a bit strong. And I don't like being absolute on everything. Like if a mentor came into my life and guided me in a different direction, maybe I could have gone down a different path. But that wasn't there. But if you are struggling massively with an upbringing and there's pain and there's lack of safety, you're going to seek some kind of a coping mechanism. And for many people, it's some kind of a substance.
Yeah, I definitely agree, because thankfully along the way I've met so many good people, and like you're saying, and I'm not so naive to sit here now and think like that wasn't a kind of a different life of mine, that I could have been on drugs. Like that could have been absolutely the case. I suppose I got lucky in a way that I was able to meet some really good people along the way that was able to kind of guide me a little bit almost, you know, because I didn't really ever have that strong father figure that I kind of needed early on in my life. And then I think that kind of came through MMA and sport when I was getting there. I had some good teachers, I suppose, in school, you know. I was never I never loved school. Was kind of, I done decent in school, but kind of always joking and messing and stuff like that, you know. But I actually did enjoy school, but like that, I did have good teachers, you know, and I had good youth clubs growing up, you know. I remember youth clubs being a big part of growing up and helping me kind of just stay out of trouble, I suppose, because there was not much really to do then, you know. And like what you're saying, my own mother kind of battled with alcohol as well, you know, through all, just saying everything that she was saying with our kids and, you know, stuff like that. So yeah, I think I was blessed as well.
Yeah, just because I've obviously had a deep conversation with yourself, Ryan, on my own podcast, and I just something else that's just had to come into mind there. I remember being blown away by your awareness at a young age. You had a much greater level of self-awareness than I had growing up. And I think there's an element of that you'll just be a bit more aware, because like there's a great line in addiction circles, it's a Johann Hari line, that sobriety is not the opposite of addiction, connection is. And it's a nice line, and it sells, you know, that way. It's a cool line. But I think the real opposite of addiction is awareness. I had zero awareness, zero self-awareness. And for me, that's the barrier I have today. And even the research shows that acting with awareness is the key. So I think you had a greater level of self-awareness when you were younger. And like ultimately, like any addictive behaviour or bad habits, if something feels good, you're going to do more of it. So like I'd say you obviously found like MMA, you like scrapping, as you said, you know, that way, because you were good at it. So right, it gives you a sense of validation. I'm good at this. It boosts your self-esteem. That feels good for people. So
probably somewhere deeper as well, like, about being able to like protect myself.
Safety,
you know, like, because
which
I
feels
felt
good as well then, yeah. So I think if something feels good, you're going to lean more into it, you know, that way. So there's a couple, it's very, very complex.
Yeah, it is very complex, to be honest, you know, and I don't know why I was self-aware at that age. I genuinely know. It's not like anybody ever sat me down and said anything to me, you know. I've always been a deep thinker, you know, but even as a kid, I used to think about different scenarios, but again, no one ever sat me down and said that to me, you know. What was the turning point in your life?
The turning point was like I was never going to give up drugs, because I fundamentally didn't believe I could live in a world without them. Could live in a world with managing anxiety
15
myself.
years?
Well, more. So 16 is when I started dabbling. I was 15 years chronically addicted. So everyday heroin use and on methadone for 15 years. So from 20 to 35, chronically addicted. So it took me a long time to become like everyday user, because I remember I used to think, I'm not really a real addict. It was like once a week, twice a week, and it can take a long time. Like, people think you get addicted straight away. That's not really, it can happen, but it's not really how it works. It tends to be more.
So you are still kind of somewhat functioning?
Oh, jeez, I was functional all the way. Like I was on the methadone program for 13 of those 15 years. And I held down a job for nearly all of them.
No way.
Yeah, all of them. So I worked, like, I worked in the graphics industry. So I used to design. I used to be sitting in an office designing methadone and anti-anxiety medication for big pharma companies.
No way.
Strung out the bits. Yeah.
Fuck.
Mad. And it was like functional addiction. And that's a really important point, because functional addiction is very real. But when I look back on it retrospectively, like when I found recovery, I was 50 grand in debt to drug dealers, money lenders, banks. Me job was me way to fund the habit. And we sold coke, sold drugs to fund the habit, because it was £100 a day habit at one stage. So I needed a shocking amount of money to keep it going. So between selling drugs and me job, and I had to keep me job to pay all the bills, because I used to get bank loans to pay for me drug debts and all. So everything was just caving in. And 2013, I ended up losing my job, got sacked.
What? How come?
It's a bit of, it's not funny. So it's funny now that I can look back on it, but I had great people in my job, like really good friends, still good friends to this day, and there was a lot of enabling going on. Now, the best thing they could have done with me was, Brian, you need to leave. We need to. They cared for me, and they used to, when customers audits would come in, so they come in and check out the company, because it was a pharma company. They used to hide me in one of the rooms so the customers wouldn't see me. But we ended up merging with this other company, and when this other company, we ended up in this open plan office space, and the other people that didn't know me were like, "What's the crack with that fella? He's asleep half the time." Like, the number one requirement for work is being awake. Like, I used to be just at the desk goofing off, and I'd be just lying on the desk and all. It was mental. But I remember, so I got called into a meeting and had to protect my job, and there was a couple of senior managers in the job that were alcoholics, or heavy drinkers. So they sort of thought I was a bit of a dipso. So I used to get away with the addiction, because they thought I was just rubber all the time, sometimes a bit drunk. So there was an element of culture let me away with. But then me two best mates in the job was the shop steward and the father of the chapel. They're like the union heads. And the three of us went in for a meeting with the senior management for me to keep my job, to have a conversation. And at the end of the meeting, I walked out and I says, "All right, that went all right, didn't it?" And he says, "Brian," he says, "you fell asleep. You goofed off on the desk." My head literally went forward and landed on the desk, and we were all just left looking at each other like I couldn't write this stuff. So the union came into me, and he says, "Right, get him offside. He's not to come back into the job. He's to go and get tested for drugs." So the company were trying to sack me, but as long as I didn't go back into the company, they couldn't actually sack me, and they were tied down to get me checked with a psychiatrist and all stuff like that. So I ended up from there, no job, savage debts, going into a detox and a treatment centre. But the first detox, I needed to do a benzo and alcohol detox before they'd allow me into a heroin detox. That's the
Right,
rules of a
okay,
lot of detoxes.
okay.
It's weird. They're not all the same. That was the only one. But it was going to be 3 months before there was a bed available. So I ended up doing a benzo detox, and I was on about 10 to 30 benzos a day. I was chewing them like Smarties. And I ended up having a very violent seizure that left me in hospital, bit me tongue down the centre, thought I was brain damaged in a hospital. But I remember in the hospital thinking I was screwed, my brain wasn't working anymore. And I remember there was this moment of, I can't do this anymore.
Oh,
I
really?
can't fight this anymore. I am done. Now, it wasn't suicidal. I don't think it was suicidal, Ryan. My brain was so warped and so all over the place that I can't really remember. But I just remember thinking, I'm done. I can't do this. I've nothing left to give. But I remember there was a sense of peace in that moment in the hospital as I lay back down on the trolley. And I truly, truly believe that it was that moment of acceptance, surrender, letting go, call it whatever you want. That was the set the tone for something different for me. And a couple of weeks later, benzo's out of my system. I went to a detox on the outskirts, a lovely little farm. It'd be a lovely little retreat if you ever went there and you weren't doing a heroin detox. Back to the animals, back to nature.
Nice.
I start talking about my feelings for the first time, talking to a psychologist, meditating, reading books about psychology, self-awareness, Eastern philosophy. I switched addictions.
Jeez,
It's
yeah.
like a positive addiction. It was like
Yeah.
the way, someone getting into something that was good for them. I became obsessed about the human mind. And this doctor came in and she wanted to do a brain scan on these people with long-term use. And I was talking to her about brain scans and psychology. And she made this little quip because I still thought it was brain damage. She says, geez, you have a sharp mind. And I was like, so if a doctor thinks of a sharp mind, maybe I can even go back to college. 4 years later, she gave me a job teaching in Trinity College. And that's
No
how I
way.
ended up getting into neuroscience and now a PhD in Trinity for neuroscience. It all happened in that detox facility.
Yes, that must have been a mad period of your life, just because, like, the awareness and just the whole different change of life for you, you know, just like I'd say, so many emotions and so many feelings. That was the first time you've probably ever felt them at that point.
It was like I woke up in that detox facility.
Yeah.
And here's the mad thing, Ryan, right? I was on Ireland AM there a couple of weeks ago, and they were asking me about the science of nostalgia. And nostalgia, you think of happy memories with your family and
Yeah.
the smell of
Holidays
cooked grass,
or- yeah.
holidays. But the moment I would go back to it, rather than any other time in my life, would be when I was in detox. It was like I came back alive. It was like
Yeah.
the emotions came back alive. Now, pain came back alive as well. So I remember my gums were killing me. Like I hadn't brushed my teeth in years. Like that's the reality of it. I barely showered anymore. But it's like my gums were killing me. My body was killing me. My whole body was waking up. But my mind was waking up. My emotions were waking up because I was numbing them for so long. And it's very hard for me to put into words what I experienced in that detox. But it was like the world was gone. I remember the cat used to crawl up my legs in the morning. I'd be sitting out on the fence looking at the dew on the grass. And it was just like spiritual, heavenly. I don't know what you'd bleeding
Yeah.
call it. It was just like I felt so present, like the world was gone. And I just knew I was going to have a great life. It's very hard. I remember just thinking, I'm going to have a great life. Awareness came into my life. That's what it was.
Yeah, because that was what does self-awareness feel like after years of emotional numbness? That was one of the questions I want, you know.
That's what it was for me. That's what it was for me. It was just like, and it's wordless. I remember I got into a lot of like Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism. I was obsessed about spirituality, not in the sense of religion, in the sense of the mind and energy and connection and awareness and a sense of what self-awareness really is. And there's a lovely line in Taoist philosophy. It's the Tao was like the way. It's the middle way. But what they say is that the Tao was nameless. And those who say it don't know. Those who know don't say because it can't be said. And when I tried to talk about this experience, there is no words for it. It had to be felt. It had to be known. And it was just like joy, waking up, brightness. It's just very difficult to put words on it. And that was the start of self-awareness for me.
Yeah, it's because I think I do often think about this, and me and Dan actually had a conversation about this. I just think so many people are so unself-aware. Like a lot of people almost like they're on autopilot, just going through life. I don't even think that they think of deeper meanings in their life, or
Yeah.
do you know, I get that a lot, you know, when I
Yeah.
speak to people. There's certain friends who I have, and I'll only have
Yeah.
deep conversations with them. And you
Yeah.
know, you're 2 hours into a conversation after just meeting up for a coffee, and you're like, geez, that got deep quick.
Got deep quick.
Do you know, but I just
Yeah.
think there's so many people who are unself-aware, like almost like they don't really think of the bigger meaning or bigger purpose or anything in their life, where they just like, oh, I have a job and I go to the job, this place from 9 to 5, and then I come home and feed the kids and watch
Yeah.
Netflix. Do you
Yeah.
know?
It's funny as well, because there's this book I read around that time. I read loads of books, but there's a book by Anthony DeMello called Awareness, and I remember I became obsessed with this book. And there was a gorgeous little story at the start of the book. It was this little eagle. This eagle's egg fell out of the tree and landed on the ground, but it was intact. Farmer couldn't get it back up into the tree, right? So the farmer, he put it into his chicken coop. Little eagle hatched a few days later, looked around, must be a chicken. Start clucking like a chicken, talking, or not talking like a chicken, flapping his wings like a chicken. And how many chickens are bleeding talking? Yeah, that's back in the day, you're in the chicken days.
You must be back on the game,
back on the game. But little eagle thought he was a chicken, right? So a few weeks, months, just acting like a chicken. And then one day, seeing a golden eagle in the sky, he's like, oh, what's that? And all the eagles, all the chickens were like, that's the eagle, the king of the skies. But we're just lowly chickens. We belong to the earth. That's all we'll ever be. Little eagle died thinking he was a chicken. And what Anthony DeMello was trying to say, between environmental challenges, stress, anxiety, trauma, limiting beliefs, and just busyness of life, so many people, they're eagles, but they think they're chickens. And I remember reading that and saying, I've been locked in a drug-riddled chicken coop for long enough. I'm an eagle.
Yeah.
I'm gonna soar. And that for me was see abundance, to see, right, you can be more than what you are. But the big one for me, and this was the catalyst for me to continue on the journey and be well, I think, in myself. And I don't often talk about this. It's a bit more of a difficult concept to talk about, but it's related to self-awareness, and it was self-observation, an ability to observe my mind, body and emotions. Because I was crippled with thoughts, not good enough, can never be able to change, can't cope. The emotions crippled me physically, the anxiety in the chest, and I just couldn't handle it. So I became like the observer. I still experience, of course I get anxiety, I hope I get anxiety, it can save your life, you know what I mean?
Yes,
but I observe it coming and going. I have thoughts, I laugh them, I watch them come and I watch them go. So it's that ability to be the observer of these things rather than being fused with them. And that's why I think people that are unaware they just do things on autopilot all the time and aren't even aware that they have a choice.
Yes.
And I think for some people, something bad happens and they react sad, anger or something like that. Whereas that's the world pulling your strings like a puppet. But you can take the strings, you can take agency, right? Some shit happened. But I'm gonna do a bit of exercise, I'm gonna change how I feel. I'm going to sit with that difficult emotion, change how I feel. You can take action to change how you feel. And that was game changing for me, to realise that I don't have to be a puppet getting pulled around by the strings of the world, you know?
Yeah, see, I think when I speak to a lot of people, especially from our areas and stuff, they've never been given that positive reinforcement. And I think the biggest things that they're held back by is the perception of themselves, because they've never been told that they can be more or do more.
Yeah.
Like, you know, even with my own mother, God bless her, you know, I think she was just passed on limited belief from her family, so she never really set me down and go, yeah, look, you can do more.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't until I started kind of getting out and experiencing the world for myself and having that little bit of, I think I was touching on your podcast when we were speaking, like I remember just having that epiphany, just thinking, no, you're going to be something one day. You're not destined for everything else that's around here, you know what I mean? Or to be like everybody else, like, you know, you control, like, you're driving the car here, you can do something here, you know? But I feel like if more people, and not even young kids or just people in general, were just told, like, oh no, like, you decide here,
Yeah.
you know, because you do.
You do.
you know?
And the beliefs drive the action. It's really weird, interesting you said that with your ma as well, because my mum, I remember being young and crying, having a conversation with my ma one time, and she was, I can't remember the exact element of it, but she was sort of saying, stay in your box, don't be getting big for your boots, and she wasn't trying to put me down. Her learnings in life was, don't be seen, don't be heard, because you can get hurt if you're seen and heard. If you stay vanilla, stay in the middle, don't get noticed, then you're safe. And she was trying to create safety for me by saying, just be small, stay in your box, don't get noticed. But I remember crying, saying, don't be putting your blood onto me, I want to be more than that. And this was me young as a kid, like, you know. So there was a fire inside me that wanted to be someone. Now, obviously, fair play to me, man. My ma sent me to a really good school, like, so I wouldn't get involved in drugs. That didn't work out. So at the same time, she wanted good for me, but feared. It didn't know that we could be more than what we are. You know, that way.
Because that's all she was taught.
That's all she was taught.
Do you know? What's it like? Trauma is passed down in the family until someone feels it. Do you know? And I think like she was unconscious, because even something she used to say to me is a closed mouth catches no flies. Like, do you know what I mean? More or less saying like what you're saying, don't be saying too much, or do you know, it's but like that, like, it's just generational trauma, and like not even that as well, but like just limiting beliefs passed down,
learned behaviours,
you know, like, and I think even that's a big thing with people just in general. They're afraid to step outside the box, and in case people go, what's he think he is? Brian up there talking in front of them people. Do you not know that he's from Bleeding Ladies well and blank? Do you know what I'm saying? He was, even me, like, I do talks now, and like, Ryan Court, he's from Bleeding Dublin 1. Do you know what I'm saying?
Who would you think he is?
Who would you think he is? You know what I mean? Speaking that way or saying them things. And it is funny, like, you know, but I just think it's just limiting beliefs. And then, because you know yourself, you get told something so much, and, you know, going back to the eagle and the chicken coop, he only knew, he thought he was a chicken, do you know what I mean?
How would you know?
And that's all he knew. Why do you think people self-sabotage so much, even though they know better? They should know better, even. I think it's like gonna hinder them in a sense, do you know?
I think you touched on it there, like people... Take imposter syndrome, for instance, right? And this is another thing I've really reframed. Like, is imposter syndrome a bad thing? So if people have an opportunity and they feel like an imposter, well, maybe they'll self-sabotage. And you might say, right, why are they self-sabotaging? Because they didn't want to feel the pain that they might be an imposter. So, like, it's the fear of failure. It's the fear of it all going to shit, like, you know what I mean? Whereas I try to tell people, imposter syndrome is a good thing. That means you're out on the edges. That means you're pushing your boundaries. You should feel uncomfortable. If you feel comfortable in life,
you're probably in the wrong rooms.
Let's get uncomfortable. So I think that's what people do. They're getting an opportunity. They feel a bit uncomfortable. Oh, I feel like an imposter. This isn't me. So I'll self-sabotage just in case it goes to shit. And then it's like, well, I could have done that, but I didn't. You know what I mean? Whereas
this happened,
they done it themselves. You know what I mean? So they didn't want the world to say you're not good enough. So they decided to sabotage themselves so they're not punished by the world. Whereas, I felt imposter syndrome loads of time, and I'm like, yeah, great. And many times, like, I've went into a room, like, I remember speaking at the Oxford Trauma Conference, and like Gabor, Bessel van der Kolk, all these big hitters are over there. I was like, I feel like an imposter, but I'm like, great. And if I made a balls of it, I happened to do a good talk that day, but if I did make a balls of it, you learn from that and you go back next time. All of these people, like, failure's just a step on the ladder to success. Not only is failure not bad, you've got to fail. You have to fail. And failure is a funny word. It's a loaded word, and people are afraid of it. But I think you have to reframe the philosophy. Like, anxiety was my kryptonite. It became my superpower. Our greatest challenges can become our greatest successes. Failures can turn into success. But you've got to get yourself uncomfortable, and you've got to, like, get away from that self-sabotage and realise what self-sabotage really is. And it's a tricky one for some people, but you've got to lean into that uncomfortableness and just feel the fear and do it anyway. It's a great line from a book.
I think it is definitely the uncomfortableness, but then it goes back about being even conscious about it, because I think a lot of self-sabotage is unconscious behaviours.
That's it.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's like, What would you have kind of any little nuggets for people to kind of get conscious of their thoughts, or
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it is very difficult thing to kind of do. I would say like it was very difficult for you to, even at that time, like where there was like 15 years of kind of unconscious thoughts and just essentially just being dragged through life, and then the next thing you know, like I can imagine it was like the Matrix where you're just seeing a lot of ones and zeros coming down the screen. You're like, oh, I'm actually thinking about and thinking deeper into things,
Deeper into it, yeah. What I would say is, right, and it's like we create these beliefs, we create these assumptions, and you can put words on this. We can say we can justify certain things, we can rationalize. Like, here's the thing, right? I used to say I was a black belt in self-deception, right? I think most people in addiction are black belts in self-deception, because if you grow up, right, you want to be successful, you want to have peace, you want to have happiness, you want to have good relationships, right? But then addiction is pulling you off course. So you start to rationalise certain things. That's not important to me. I don't give a shit about that. I know the drugs, I'm having a great time. Sure, I only do on a Monday and a Tuesday. Sure, I'm an addict, but I have a good job.
Justifications.
You rationalise all the way. You create this web of self-deception and lies. And I used to think this was a real thing of people in addiction, but I think we all spread these lies and these belief systems with ourselves. So we assume certain things then, and we have these beliefs about ourselves. So I think we have to get under the bonnet of that and say, right, let's say for an example, right, you got a job opportunity, right? So I have a job opportunity. Will I go for it? And you apply for it and you say, I'm not going to go for that, right? I'm not going to do that, right? So you self-sabotage that opportunity, right? So say, right, why did you do that? I wouldn't have been good enough. Say, right, I'm not good enough. And see, that self-worth, I'm not good enough, that's a monster for so many people. That's that inner critic just nearly talks to you. You're not good enough, you're stupid, you're not strong enough, you're not smart enough.
Do you think that's just learned along the way?
It's learned along the way, yeah. It's definitely learned along the way. But what you have to do to become aware of that, right? You've got to challenge those beliefs, right? Am I not good enough, right? Well, have you ever been good enough in any other area of your life? How's your relationships? What about other jobs you got? Yeah, well, I was good at that job. Yeah, well, I'm good in relationship. Yeah, well, I'm good at that. So all of a sudden you start looking at the other things, because I think like confidence is evidence. You talked about that on our podcast, right? And I love that, right? And I think what you're looking for, we're looking to build a wall of evidence, because we talk about self-belief, we talk about these things, they're very arbitrary and abstract, right? So I like this evidence. I like to think about it as a wall of evidence. So say, right, I'm good enough, I've done that, I could do that, right? I need to get better at that. So I'm going to get better at that. Build a growth mindset and put another brick on that wall of evidence, right? So you've got to stress test your assumptions and challenge and dispute your belief systems. And that's what you've got to do. And I think a really easy way to do this is just the power of journaling. Just write it on a page sometimes and say, right, what am I good at? What am I bad at? What could I get better at? And it depends on the example. It depends on the challenge you're going through. But whether it's a conversation with a therapist, with a friend, having these deep conversations, writing it down on a page and really looking at reality. But I think one of the big things that taps into this is that people do think that their abilities and skills, they're innate. It's a fixed mindset. And if you have a fixed mindset, you don't want to look at this stuff, because if you believe you can't get better at it, why would you look there?
Yeah.
So it'd be nicer to self-sabotage and not go to that pain. And again, our brains don't want pain. So it's our brain saying, I'm going to self-sabotage this so you don't feel that pain. Because that's your ego. That's your concept of self that's saying, that's ruling the roost there and saying, right, I don't want you to feel that pain, so we're going to do it. So your brain is in control and you're unaware. But if you push through that and have these conversations and write it down and get more realistic, and then say, right, I'm not good at tech yet. I'm not good at public speaking yet.
Yeah.
I was terrible at public speaking at the start, but I had a growth mindset. I'm going to get better at that. So have a look, and where you are weak in certain areas, learn, adapt and get stronger. And that's the key. But you've got to become aware of it. And I think just journaling or having conversations is the easiest way of going about it.
Yeah, because I think everything is almost everything is a skill set, like what you're saying. And I think the more you do it, the more you get more proficient at it, I would say, you know. Like I think it's just about taking them limiting beliefs and going like, oh yeah, maybe I'm not so good at that right now, but sure, what can I do to work on it to get better? Because I really think you might not become the best ever in the world ever, do you know what I mean? But I think like you can get a lot better at it if you at least be conscious of it and try and work on things, you know?
Yeah. And I think another thing as well is like, back to awareness. Like, I'm very aware, right? I could get better at dancing. I'm a terrible dancer. I could get better at dancing, right? I could get better at technology. I could get better at business, accountancy and stuff like that. But you know what? I've no really interest in dancing.
Yeah.
I probably do in the future. Who knows? I think that's a limiting belief that I need to become more aware of, because sometimes if you're at a night out or whatever like that, and I don't go to many, it would be nice. I said it'd be nice to get up on the dance floor,
be,
you know?
but I suppose in terms of how many nights out, how useful is it going to be
of your time,
as opposed to you working on public speaking, where it's like,
that's it.
Do you know? A quick word from our sponsors, The Ink Factory. If you're looking for the best tattoo studio in Ireland, The Ink Factory in Temple Bar is one of the highest rated tattoo studios in the country, with over 5,000 5-star Google reviews. They're home to 30 expert artists, including award-winning talent covering every style from fine line to full custom pieces. They also offer professional piercings from just €25, including jewellery. So whether it's your first tattoo or your next one, you're in safe hands. Visit www.theinkfactory.ie or follow them on Instagram and TikTok at The Ink Factory.
And that really ties into what we're saying about technology. Well, I'll delegate that. I'll pay someone else to do that because I don't enjoy it. Why would I spend my time there? So yeah, I could get better at technology, but sometimes you have to pick your battles or stay in your zone of competence as well. I love that mental model. Stay in your zone of competence. What are you good at? Double down on that.
And what do you like?
What do you like? What do you like?
What fills your cup?
That's it.
Do you know?
That's it. What you feeling? What fills the fire in the belly?
Yeah. It's definitely I think definitely do more what you enjoy and delegate what you don't enjoy, because I try to do that as well. Why do you think it's so hard for people to break habits that they know is terrible for them, like, or really bad for them?
Oh God, yeah, that's a big one. I think that,
because you know yourself, like, you know, when people are taking drugs, it's not like they're sitting there going, you know, oh, I know this is going to make me life a misery, but I love doing it. You know yourself.
And it gets to the stage, I think when you're in the depths of addiction, you're so locked in and you're biologically addicted, and it's really difficult to get out of that. But let's say take it to a lighter kind of a habit. Let's say getting into exercise and stuff like that, right? So many people want to exercise more, but they just can't. And I think I could talk 10 hours about habit change. I'm trying to come up with something that could be quite quick. I think one big thing that people try to do to break habits, right? They try to go too big too quick.
Yeah.
And I think you've got to take baby steps. If you want to get exercise into your life, start with walking, start with a 2-kilometer run, and start with what works for you. Make it simple, make it easy. And I think one of the biggest challenges, like if you hate running, if you want to exercise and you hate running, forget about running.
Yes.
Play tennis, play football, find something that has a chance of sticking. That is absolutely key. It really, really is. So that's the big thing. And baby steps, find something you like. But I think what people misunderstand around habit change as well, they think they're lazy. They think they're not motivated people. And you've talked about motivation as well. Motivation is bullshit.
Yeah.
And if someone said to me, right, oh, you'll never get me running, I'm not motivated to run. Right, get me out in the field there, right? Meet me at 10 o'clock and I'll motivate you to run. And I'll bring a bleeding pit bull with me and they will run, right? And what that means is that the conditions of a certain situation can create the motivation. So if you're waking up in a house with 3 kids running amok and you're trying to do 10 minutes of breath work, get your bleeding a little bit of it's just not going to happen. You're not going to have the motivation for that. So you've got, again, like addiction, you've got to set the environment up. Make sure it works for you, but make it simple, make it easy, create as less friction as you can.
It's friction, isn't it?
Now, another thing as well, right? I have good self-accountability, and I know some people have good self-accountability because not that I beat myself up, I challenge myself, and I beat myself up in a positive way. I'll say, you should have done that. Do that
Yeah,
next time.
yeah.
Be better than
Not
that. Do better.
degrading yourself,
Not degrade
but-
myself in any
Yeah.
way, but I set certain standards for myself. But I'm not great with, I'm great for cardio exercise, right? But I'm not great for strength because I didn't enjoy strength for a while. But here's something interesting that happened. I got a PT trainer for strength exercises online, and he gave me this app where I had to show up for him, and I wasn't going to not that I wouldn't want to let him down, I didn't want to let myself down by bailing out on a thing. I enjoy strength training now, and it's just something that's happened over time. So accountability, whether you're going to the gym with your mates or meeting people so you don't want to let them down, accountability is a great way of forging habits as well. And I think that's the key. I think in terms of breaking habits, it's a little bit different, because one thing people misunderstand about habits, right? They often think about the behaviour, right? I need to stop drinking. I need to stop being on my phone. I need to stop binge eating, right? And you might think the problem is the eating, the phone, or the food, right? The food, the phone, or the alcohol, right? They're not really the challenge per se, right? If you have a habit, there's the A, the B, and the C. The A is called the antecedent in sort of academic terms. Really, it's the trigger, right? The cue or the trigger, right? Then you have the behaviour. Then you have the consequence, right? So imagine you're bored. That's the trigger. You pick up your phone. That's the behaviour. You're no longer bored. That's the consequence. Behaviour that's rewarded is repeated. So if you have tricky habits in your life, don't get bogged down with the behaviour or the substance per se. What's the trigger?
The underlying.
What's underlying it? Is it stress? Is it anxiety? Is it hanging around with a gang that always want to go to the pub? Is it boredom? Is it disconnection? Is it loneliness? What is underpinning that? And if you can tackle that, that's the key. People often ask me, like, I don't say I'm in recovery, right? I say I'm recovered. The reason why I say I'm recovered, because I have no want for drugs or drink or anything like that, because there's no triggers. I'm not anxious anymore.
Do you think that's because you have dealt with everything internally?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
And I suppose the drugs and everything else was just a byproduct of what you didn't deal with internally, yeah.
Internally, that's what it was. So I broke the loop. You know what I mean? So people think they have to stop the substance or the behaviour, but you need to break the habit loop, the ABC, the trigger, the behaviour, and the consequence. If you can break that loop, that's what you really need to be doing. And a really powerful tool from behavioural science is, right, the golden rule of habit change, right? So let's say you feel a bit anxious and you can't change that. Well, instead of having a glass of wine or something like that, the anxiety's there. Change the behaviour. So instead of going for a glass of wine, right, I'm anxious, gonna walk the dog, gonna go for a walk, gonna go to the gym. So the anxiety is there, but the behaviour changes, and it's gonna be something more positive that will hopefully over time change that anxiety-based mindset.
Do you think, like, everybody in their life have some sort of addiction, even if it's a good addiction? Do you know, like you're going back to what you're talking about, like, because I suppose I nearly got addicted to MMA when I was that age, and like I would say I was addicted to it. I used to train for 3 times a day for 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
So 6 hours a day, like, just, and because obviously it's very intense as well.
Yeah.
Do you know? Do you think people need, not need addictions, but like in terms of, even if it's a positive addiction, to go to the gym or walk the dog or?
So the funny thing is, right, that there's multiple different definitions of addiction, right? One of the definitions of addiction that I like is that it's the continued use continued use of a behaviour or a substance, right, despite harm to self or others over the long term, right?
Yeah, okay.
So Usain Bolt, was he addicted to running? Well, if he lost his marriage on the back of it, yeah, it was an addiction because he couldn't stop and he was losing something important. Now, he became the best runner of all time, so he was obsessed. So look at the consequences of the action. So it's very easy to see heroin and cocaine and too much alcohol. They're very clear, will cause consequences. For you, right, let's say you were in a relationship and you were like, right, you're working out too much, the relationship isn't working, and you couldn't stop. It was harming the relationship. Then it falls into the category of a real addiction. So sometimes I like to think of them as like obsessive drives, rather than addictions per se. We're playing a bit of a language game here.
Yes.
So what are the consequences of the behaviour? That's the challenge. And the funny thing about this is, like, if somebody, and we're doing a thought experiment here, like if you could do cocaine Friday, Saturday and Sunday, you had the money, there was no physical consequences and it didn't harm your relationships, it's not really an addiction.
Yeah, I actually never thought about it like that, to be honest.
definition, you know. Now, it's unlikely that will happen.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, you know.
They'd lose the gaff, the marriage, everything.
Yeah,
probably.
but it's like, what's the consequences? That's the key thing.
Yeah, I actually never thought about that, even with a positive
Addiction.
Yeah, I never really thought about it that way.
And I feel I did switch addictions from drugs into education. Like, I was obsessed. But luckily for me, I wasn't in a relationship, and I was able to get obsessed about that, so it wasn't causing any long-term harms. But for someone else, let's say they had 3 kids and you're studying 6 hours a day, like I was, like that's going to be a problem, you know.
Yeah. What do you think people today are addicted to things like phones, social media, and distraction without realising it?
Definitely. It's funny. I suffer from the course of assumption. I'd say you might be the same. I know when you get so obsessed about a certain area, you start thinking everyone sort of knows, has knowledge there. So I'd be a bit distant on that, whether I'm thinking the same as other people. But I remember talking to Dr. Anna Lemke about this. She, from a Dopamine Nation, she wrote that book. It's a brilliant book. And she calls it the modern day hypodermic needle, which is a great name for it. But I do think people just pick up the phones. Like, I mindlessly pick up my phone.
I do.
The one addiction I still have is the phone.
Yeah, I do.
Because it's not causing harm. Like, I wouldn't be that bad where I'm spending hours. I don't doom scroll around like that, but it's taking me focus away. It's causing me harm in terms, am I picking up that bleeding phone again?
Yeah.
It's like, I was talking to Gabor Mate about it, and he says it's like a horse energy, he was calling. I can't remember what he meant by that. It's just like an energy that just takes you over. And he went and done like a 10-day Vipassana kind of a thing, and he sort of broke that energy, and he wasn't looking at his phone so much. But he remembers something that really landed with me. He says he was on an airplane one day and he had no coverage on his phone, but he picked up his phone about 15 times to look at it.
Yeah.
There was nothing to look at on the phone, that he had no connectivity. So it's just like, it's a habitual thing. So I think phones, like cigarettes, are really dangerous addictions because the consequences are real, but they're not extreme like heroin or something like that, and they're further down the line. So we tend to discount them as serious. But
it's just lifting up the phone.
They're changing us slowly, you know.
Yeah, now I'm gonna be honest, I have a bit of an issue with it now. Like, do you know what I mean? I find myself and I enjoy my own kind of time.
Same with
do you
me,
know, when I enjoy my thought process and I enjoy thinking, but a lot of the time now I feel like when I've time to myself and I'm just sitting there and I'm on my phone, and I'm never really by myself. I'm just constantly and like that doom scrolling, really. You know, and it's something that I'm conscious about now, and I'm trying to actively stop it. You know, it's not because I know it's not good, but that's good. I never thought about it like that, like the long terms of effects, because it's so not subtle, but like you're saying, it's not extreme where it's like immediate danger kind of thing.
But bit by bit, it's rewiring your brain slowly and slowly and slowly, and it's having a massive impact. It's just not visible. And I think that's the problem with it. It's just not visible, but it is making a difference. And I'm a bit wary of AI now as well. I had to check ChatGPT for things, and I go on, and so I'm not thinking anymore. I'm not thinking as much.
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day, about everybody, you know. It was like, what stage are you going to get to in the world? Because it is such a useful tool. I understand that it is, and I use it a bit myself, to be quite honest. But again, I don't want to say lazy, but you don't need to think for yourself anymore.
And again, I remember Professor Ian Robertson was talking. I seen him. He's a neuroscientist. He was talking about this on the news, and some fella was saying, well, kids don't have to learn like about certain things, learn certain things. And granted, they don't have to have that information, but the action of rote learning and creating that mental friction is working their brains and allows them other cognitive activities and complex calculations within their brain and different things. So we're losing an ability to think. So between not sitting with ourselves anymore because of the phones and not thinking for ourselves because of AI, it's the perfect storm for brain deadness. Like, you know?
You know, because that was something I was only thinking about, especially along the AI front. Like, it's like, how much of anything can be even trusted anymore? Like, you know what I mean? Like, writing their own books and who's doing this and what's scripted and what's not. And
Here's a mad thing, right? I'm in talks with a couple of publishers about writing another book, and I want to write a book around change. I was actually thinking of this morning driving over here. I says it's going to be so hard writing a book again because ChatGPT is there. I'll know that simple, quick fix that isn't going to give me what I really want, but it'll give me a flavour of it. It'll annoy me writing a book now. And then I'd be thinking, geez, could it be better if I just done that, or other people just doing that? Like, am I wasting me time?
Or else, not even that. Has people just thought, now we've ChatGPT the whole book?
Yeah,
You know?
it has happened. One publisher published a book thinking it was some authors, and they found out the whole thing was done by ChatGPT, and it was pulled.
Well, even now they're blading talking about podcasts being done by
I know,
like,
the voices
it's
and
like, it's scary.
It's
like,
scary. Where's it going?
That kind of what that is. Like, again, it's good to be a deep thinker, but like that stuff that I do be thinking about at like all hours of the night, thinking like,
Where's it
Jesus,
gonna end?
it's mental, yeah. What do you think is the difference between like someone being happy and just keeping yourself distracted?
Someone being happy and keeping yourself distracted. Happiness is a funny one, right? I remember this was more when I used to read all like the spiritual books and the Buddhism and Taoism and all that kind of stuff. But it's like we need to be in the middle. We need to be, it's the middle way, right? Because happy, sad, up, down, love, hate. There's loads of these, pleasure, pain, you know that way. And if you even look at that at a biological perspective, if you experience a lot of pleasure, you don't drop back down to baseline. You feel pain after. That's why the dopamine receptors work in the brain. So like I like to think of joy. That's where we want to be.
Yeah.
Joy doesn't really have an opposite, you know that way. It's the middle way. So it's being present, it's being at peace. It's not big highs that come with the big lows. So in terms of happiness, that's where I aim to be. Success for me is inner peace. And with distraction, like distraction for me is just a lighter and more subtle version of addiction. Like you're distracted, you're not at peace. So for me, it's not happiness and distracted. It's more like peace and distracted. So you're distracted by the shiny new toy. You're distracted by relationships, whether they're challenging relationships. You're distracted by earning more money so you can go on that next holiday. So what's distracting your mind? What's actually distracting you? Can you focus then as well? Have you gotten an ability to focus? So I think it's not so much happiness, it's more peace versus distraction. And that's why the phone is bothering me so much. Like I really have a core set of values I try to live my life by. And for me, like it's health, it's energy, it's relationships, it's boldness is a big one for me. I love taking a risk and putting myself out there.
Like that.
Kaizen is like a Japanese term for continued improvement.
Yeah,
I love
like
that term.
I love that term.
It's a great term.
Yeah.
But one of them is it's just like inner peace is a huge one for me. So if the phone's dragging me away and I'm thinking internally, that's taking me away from my inner peace. I'm distracted from my North Star value of where I want to be. And success for me is inner peace. That's where it's at.
Because I think one of the best things that you can have is just to be content with what you already do have and how grateful you should be for what you already have in life, you know?
Yeah.
Because I think, like, you know, for me, I remember years ago, if someone had said to me, like, oh, what's your main goal in life? I probably would have said to be happy. But now I kind of understand the older I get that, like, happiness is just kind of like a feeling in the moment, and it's so fleeting as well. Like,
so fleeting.
You know, so I think what I would try to be now is just content, you know, almost to be like, you know, just I don't want to use the word satisfied because satisfied kind of implies that you're just never going to want to strive for more.
Yeah, lacking passion, lacking life,
Yeah.
And it's funny when you say that, like I think there's a sense, like I wouldn't want to take everyone's pleasures away. Life is for living, but just be careful with it. Be careful, because what goes up must come down. So let's say you're going to be so happy because you're going to this party. Let's say a young kid going to the party, it's going to be brilliant, I'm so happy. Well, let's say that was taken away.
Yeah.
You're going to be bleeding sad. So the absence of what makes you happy could make you sad. That's the danger.
Yeah, I think, like I was talking about it the other day, I think once you understand that life is peaks and valleys, you know, and like there's going to be times, and like even was talking about my accident the other day, and I was like, you know, I understand that that's probably not gonna be, I remember saying in the video, I hope it's not as bad as that time in my life, but I also understand that there's gonna be times in the future where I am gonna have more downs.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, please God, it's not as down as that, but I understand that. And there'll be times again where I'm like happy in the future, or kind of up, you would say, and then I'm gonna be brought back down. So for me personally, I just try and keep like a baseline for myself. Now, it's not to say that I don't get sad or I don't get excited about certain things, but nearly like just try and be stoic about things and go, oh yeah, this is great. And you know, when something good happens, I'm like, oh, this is brilliant, enjoy it. You know what I mean? And when something's bad happening, going, this is a bit of shit, but you're gonna be up again.
Yeah, it's a nice way of putting it.
You know, that's the way I think about it. They just try and kind of stay, but without like, you can't just like have like monotone throughout the whole thing. Do you know what I mean? I understand when something's good happening, I just try and savor the moments when something good is happening, and then when something's bad's happening, going like, it's a bit shit, accept it, and just know that this too shall pass.
Yeah.
Do you know, it's
it's big time.
Yeah.
Savouring's a nice one, just savouring the moments. Really,
just be present.
Breathing it in, and feeling it, embodying good moments,
Yeah, and even the small things, like, that's what I try think, like, you know, because I know everybody's not a fan of him, but I really like Jordan Peterson, and I heard him talk about it before, like that, you know, people have this idea of paradise being cocktails on the beach and somewhere and whatever, and he was like, but that's actually such a small part of your life. You know, the conversations you're having with your partner, the good times you're having with your kids, the drives to work, you know, the small things. That's where I try and take good elements of the small things that practically make up your whole life if you think about it.
Walking the dog is a big one for me now.
I love me dog. Do you know, so every time I'm out with me dog or I'm playing with him, I'm like, or even have him in the house, you know, and fuck, the dog one's a big one for me, because I know they're only here for such a short.
Well, I only heard, my little dog's only 2, and she's for every day of your dog, that's a week for them. A day for you, a week for them. So I try to make our little life as good as possible.
And that's it.
She has me well trained.
Yeah, 100%, because I have a Rottweiler, and sometimes he does have the house destroyed with the hair and stuff, and I'm like, there's gonna be one day where I'm gonna be begging to be cleaning up your hair. Do you know, I think about that, especially with me dogs. I love dogs. I used to have a little pug, and he slept under my arm, on his back, under my arm every night. And he died on me, and it broke me, to be honest. It was really.
I replaced the front of my phone for my partner after my dog. She only seen it over the weekend. She said, what's that about?
You think people today are more disconnected from themselves than ever before?
Oh, big time. So this is my big, I wouldn't say passion project. I got very busy over the last 2 years, and it was great. It's like the paradox of success nearly. I got loads of opportunities on the back of the TV doc, and I'm not complaining. Like, I'm very thankful.
That was hooked.
Hooked, yeah.
Brilliant.
Very thankful, very grateful for that. But I was saying yes to things that were like for me 6 and 7 out of 10s, whereas spending an hour with myself, that's a 10 out of 10.
Yes.
You know what? Spending time with me stepdaughter, my partner, my nephews, they're 10 out of 10s with family. So I was saying yes to things, but I was disconnecting from myself. But I think the key for me is when you disconnect from yourself, you disconnect from other people as well.
Yes.
So I think more today than I've ever seen before. We're so busy between the phones and our ability to be contactable with the workplace, hybrid working and Zoom calls and stuff. People are just like busy bees flying around the place, and we're so disconnected from ourselves. I think there's a lot more people doing wellness stuff, but I think it's like box ticking rather than really. Like, you can just go up to your room and sit with yourself for a bit, but people are going to the saunas and the ice baths, and these are great things. I go myself.
Yeah, of course.
But there's the real stuff versus the box tick stuff is a little bit different, you know that way. The real work.
But I think even like what you're saying there, even that's a distraction in itself. Going to the sauna and going, like, it is very difficult to sit there with yourself, just nothing, like just no nothing. Phone, just sitting quiet and just. Yeah, it's very difficult.
I was out at the marina because I drove over here to Mulhuddart early this morning to skip the traffic, and there was no coffee shop, so I had a half an hour to burn. So I went down by the marina, And I just walked down. The water was so still. It was just beautiful, it was. And I remember I was just sitting there looking out at it, and I could feel my mind. So I could back up and have a walk, and I was like, the coffee shop still aren't open. Just chill, just relax, just connecting with myself, that way. But my mind was distracted. It was looking for the coffee. It was looking for the work. It was do this, do that. What are you going to say in the podcast? What are you doing later on?
Yeah.
Just be still, and you have to practice that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's connecting with yourself.
Do you think that's your brain's way of not wanting to confront whatever is really in there, though, because it's just looking to give you another distraction almost?
So it's really interesting, right? Because I went deep into all this kind of stuff in terms of spiritual text now when I was in the early days of recovery, right? So in Buddhism, right, they say the mind is dukkha, all right? So dukkha translates to suffering. So our natural default is life is suffering. That's what Buddhism says, right? And the suffering basically means overthinking, stressing, just all that kind of inner critic, not good enough, whatever it is for different people. Hinduism has a word called maya. The mind is delusion. So you're deluded, your thinking is deluded. We're not present. And even the word in Christianity, right? I'm not religious at all. You think I would be? You think I am? Do I have to talk about all this stuff, right? I'm just fascinated by the concepts. In Christianity, right, the word sin doesn't mean to do something wrong, as I was told growing up, and most people think. The sin means to miss the point of life. And for me, this morning at the marina, I'm looking out, I'm being still, I'm looking at the water. That's heaven. But then I'm sinning by missing the point of it and getting dragged into all the thousand little things. Back to myself. The mind is dukkha, suffering. So it's a natural default for us to overthink. And I think it's evolutionary. You're protecting yourself, you're doing stuff. But heaven or the divine or just life, whatever the hell you want to call it, presence and stillness, that's just sitting with yourself, the senses, just experiencing life, being present. And you can't, your default can't be staying there, but I think try to enter that point as much as you can and create a very healthy mindset.
Yeah, because it is something that I do think about again. And, there has been stages of my life where I did it a lot. And again, I'll tell you the truth, like currently in my life, I am quite distracted by my phone in particular. That's a big one. And I know, again, I'm conscious about it. So it's not like it'd be nearly an excuse if you are not conscious about it, but the fact that I am conscious about it and I understand the ramifications for doing that is not good. And that's why I'm kind of actively working on it. I'm working on it, but it's still... It is because like that I enjoy my own company and I like time to think, but like that I feel like I'm currently going through a stage in my life where my mind's just on overdrive and I'm using the phone as a distraction almost, which is not good. I understand it's really not.
And then think of younger kids that have never sat with themselves, hadn't even got parents to say that's a good thing and are distracted and think that's the pure norm. That's me concern for the future.
Well, even now, like, even when I think my childhood, like, I had a great childhood, like, like, again, a lot of issues in my family, but in to a degree, like, the streets were a big part of raising me as well. But great time in the streets. Like, a lot of playing with my friends, like, we'd play and get old, we'd wait for people to throw, like, be getting the house done up and they'd throw out their old floorboards and we used to sit on the floorboards going down hills where I lived, just doing things, great. We used to take the tyres off our bikes and have steel caps and just go around and skidding, but like good childhood. But what I'm getting at is, like, I felt so bad and like I pity the kids now that never get to experience that.
Just playing,
just being a
boredom,
child,
being curious, through boredom, imagination. Boredom fosters imagination, and there's no boredom anymore. That's the problem.
It's very, and I suppose, like, they're not ever really gonna be, like, because they've never went through. You only know what you know. Do you know what I'm saying? So kids growing up now don't even know that they're missing out on this kind.
The essence of awareness.
No awareness. You only know what you know. So I just kind of do think about it and go, oh shit, like, you actually don't understand, like, how great it is to be just running around with your mates and falling, scraping your knees and doing like, we used to be doing like mad shit when we were kids, like,
great
you know what
memories,
I mean?
Man.
Climbing through the roofs and the flats and the flats would, like, abandon them wherever, and we just grew up and climbed it. Now, stuff that we shouldn't have been doing, you know
That's
what I mean?
it.
Definitely not.
I remember we used to be in I lived in Ballymun for a while, and we used to jam the lifts and all. So
Yeah,
in between
yeah.
2 floors, and you'd be climbing up doing mad things, throwing trolleys off the 7th floor, so you get the wheelbarrows, little marbles
Yeah,
out.
class.
Mad stuff.
But like even collecting for Halloween and stuff, do you know
That's
what I
some of
mean?
my best memories.
Yeah.
Robbing the air bonfire. Wood up the road, there'd be a war, a bonfire war on.
Yeah, but I
Savage,
do think about stuff like that, you know, that kids are just missing out on so many like valuable life skills
Yeah.
and stuff to be learned there that you just kind of, I feel like, you know, it's just gone to a stage now where it's just like mindless robots in a sense, do you know what I mean? Because like we were even talking about with the AI thing, there's no ability to think for yourself anymore. There's no need to.
No need to.
I mean, like, why, I suppose, even thinking about it in ChatGPT or whatever, like, it's like, why would you write a book if you can almost get a better book
Yeah.
and way less effort?
Yeah.
But that's not good, I don't think,
Yeah.
you know?
Do you know where there's an opportunity in that as well? I'm always saying it to me stepdaughter, my nephews and stuff like that as well. And they're only young. It says that creates a void where there's opportunity. So if the young person listening to this now, well, most people are doing that, adults as well, right? You can be the difference. You can do it a little bit different, and you can set yourself aside from other people as well. You know, give yourself a real unfair advantage then as well.
Yeah. Like, what do you mean by that, though, like, in terms of
so
what?
if most people aren't sitting with themselves thinking, if most people are the automatons, right, well, if you do that, if you do a bit of meditation or just sit with yourself, have those deep conversations, you set yourself apart from the
Yes.
norms, you know, that
Yeah.
way of what normal is.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely, yeah, because I think it's definitely getting less and less with AI, and it's scary, to be
Yeah,
honest, you know,
big
because
time.
it's just, there's no need to. And then even with everything as well, like, if you think about it, you know, like, you don't even have to go up to a girl in a bar anymore and face rejection. You just go on to Tinder, and if she doesn't like you'll never know.
Yeah, you rationalise the reason why.
Yeah, like, it's like, you know, but I just think the rejection
Yeah.
and stuff is so good. Because I think, like, after getting, like, I know even, like, with me growing up, like, and asking girls out or whatever and getting rejected, it's like, oh, jeez, it's not the, do you know what I mean?
Not
It's a
that
bit
painful.
embarrassing, I
Yeah.
suppose, but, like, it's like, all right, you've been told yet in the past, so it's not like every girl's just rejecting you. I think it's just get you comfortable with that rejection where it's like, oh, yeah, like, you know, she said no, but she said yeah, and, you know, everything's okay, but I just think, like, it's good to feel that, because it's a good learning process of, like, oh, yeah, you know, that that one didn't go your way, and that's why I liked fighting as well. Like, fighting was like that. It's like, all right, just, you lost that one, so what can we do to fix it?
Yeah.
And then it just gets you comfortable with failure almost, and just awkward situations, or what you deem as awkward situations, you know?
That's what
You know,
deem as
like,
awkward
yeah,
situation.
because
What's awkward for one person isn't. So
Exactly.
It's not, so it in itself isn't awkward. Your perception of it is awkward. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is, because let's be honest, right? Like, most of the problems in your mind, even if they're a bad problem, they're probably not as bad as you're making it out in your own mind. Like, you're the one who's telling your story, telling yourself the worst version of events and stories in your own head. And then when you actually kind of, like, I try and rationalise a lot of things and stop and breathe and go, all right, well, let's break it down rationally. Do you know what I mean? Don't be thinking catastrophically, like, you know, let's break this down into, like, you know, how bad is it on a scale of 1 to 10?
Yeah.
Do you know?
What can I do about it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, it's but again, it's just telling yourself, and it's like what you're saying, it's I try and do a lot of reframing.
Yeah,
You know,
reframing's a
reframing's a
monster
brilliant
for
one.
me. I remember with rejection, I remember talking to, I asked Amy Huberman, the actress, for an interview. This is years ago, before I was podcasting and all. And I remember I sat down with her and I said, geez, Amy, I wasn't even going to ask. And she says, geez, if you don't ask, the answer's always no.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, all right, so I was rejected. I was pre-rejected. It was only when I asked, I gave myself a fighting chance. So, like, logically, it was a no before I asked, pre-rejection. And it was only when I asked, I could have gotten rejected, or she could have said yes.
Yes.
So the only thing not to do is not to ask.
Yeah.
In a way. Give yourself a fighting chance. That was a huge one for me for reframing rejection.
I know, but again, people don't want the feel that uncomfortableness, and
Yeah.
that's why you don't. So
Yeah.
you just rather just not ask the question or avoid
The
it.
more you do it, it becomes nothing then.
Yeah.
The uncomfortableness dissipates over time then.
Yeah, but I think like even going back to what we were talking about earlier on, it's not, I want to say it's a skill set, but it's nearly like, oh, you just do it loads, and now it's like, oh, you know, that's actually not that bad.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah.
Now look, being rejected, let's be honest, no matter what way it is, it's never the initial, when you get the initial
the
feeling
gut.
of it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
But then when you sit with that for a second, and then just realise that there's just so many reasons why it could have happened. No, automatically our human instinct is, oh, you're not good enough.
Yeah.
That's the first.
Big time. And do you know how that works in the brain's really interesting as well, Ryan, right? So straight away there's this immediate response, and this is like a survival instinct. So rejection feels bad, right?
Yeah.
So it targets an element of the brain that makes you not feel good. But then
The
there's
amygdala, is it?
The amygdala play a role in that.
Okay.
Yeah, there'll be other areas as well. But then there's another part of your brain. It's like, so that's a real quick, it's called the quick and dirty road. So it's quick, but it's dirty because it hasn't really got all the information, right? But then the slow and cleaner road, it goes up to the neocortex, and you sort of appraise the information, and then that sort of calms down the amygdala. That's in a normal brain, a healthy brain. But let's say somebody that catastrophizes, and all of a sudden it goes up to the neocortex, the thinking brain. Oh God, I got rejected. I'm always getting rejected. I'm always going to be rejected. I'm a piece of shit and worthless.
Yeah.
So you fuel that then. So you have to sort of reframing is key, just to change that whole system.
Reframing's a big one,
Big
and I
one, it's a
really
monster.
like reframing, and I've talked about reframing a lot.
Yeah.
You know, reframing is huge. What was harder for you, getting clean or learning how to live normally afterwards, would you say?
Oh, getting clean, because learning how to live normally was an absolute joy for me. It's been the best journey of my life, because I just found something I loved in terms of education. So it was like, even indeed, if I could go back to one time, it'd be detox, and it was bleeding. It was just an amazing journey since then. So getting clean was like absolute torture.
Because the reason why I ask you that question is because I know, obviously it's a little bit different, but I just know loads of people who spent a long time in prison, and then they got out and didn't really know how to function. They were like, I remember talking to like one of my coaches about it, and they were like just saying that it was just so much easier in prison because you didn't really have to take accountability for anything, or you didn't have to think about anything almost, like, do you know what I mean? You were told when to eat, you were told when to go to sleep, but then you go out into the kind of the real world, and it's like now you have all this responsibility. You have to start thinking for yourself. Do you know?
Yeah, I've done it. I do a lot of work in the prisons, and it's like you can't even get your own toilet paper in prison. You have to be given your toilet, like the little decisions down to the most minute details, and then you have to make every decision when you get out. I was talking to one fella, and he was saying like the second sentence starts when you get out. That's when your second sentence starts, and it's crazy.
Nice.
But I was very, very lucky that I just found something that just grabbed me, you know, that way. So it's so getting clean was definitely the harder.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, like, because if you think about it, you know, I think a lot of people want to be just almost unconsciously brought through life where it's more comfortable to not make decisions for themselves almost. You know, because suppose like if to take risks, going back to like what you're saying about feeling uncomfortable and all, if you take risks, there's a chance that it's going to go fail, and you know, like, where if you don't really have to take any risks and you don't really have to think for yourself, you can just be kind of just go through life and everything's kind of grand. Do you know what I mean? In a way, like,
Big
you know, you don't have to step outside your box and, you know, think like that. So I actually really got where he was coming from when he said that to me. You know, he was like saying that it was just a huge stress when he got out, and then he was like, there was like, sure, he had to get a job, he had responsibilities now, and he had to pay bills, and he had to kind of figure out what he wanted to do with his life, where in prison he didn't really have to think about any of that. There was no uncomfortableness because he woke when they told him to woke, he went to bed, and when they told him to go to bed, he ate. When they told him to eat. Do you know?
Big time.
It's definitely something that when he was saying, I was like, oh, you know, I understand why you felt more kind of at ease then.
Yeah.
She didn't have to really step out or think or
Yeah.
take any risks or gambles or anything, you know.
Yeah, it was funny. That was a part of my journey in detox as well, because the phone was taken off me. Obviously, kind of a phone, and you just got up and you do your chores and you do what you have to do. So it was very structured, you know, and that does create is. Not saying prison's fucking easy by any stretch, or detox is easy, but it's just structure, and this is just what you have to do, and there's no really decision, so it can make life a little bit easier.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Do you think people need kind of structure in their life, just day to day, I think?
Oh, well, I tell you, I think people are different, and some people say they thrive in chaos and stuff like that. I need structure.
Yeah, I need structure
I
too,
need structure.
to
I'd be
honest.
very, very structured in terms of when I get up and when I work. I know where my energy points are. I know when I dip. I know different things. I like to have structure with what I eat. I'm just healthier when I'm structured. My mind is healthier. I'm physically healthier, and I don't do well. Now, when I go on holidays, I kind of enjoy not having the structure, but I nearly look forward to going home back to the structure. You know,
I don't do well without routine.
Yeah.
And I know it's like, again, I'm able, thankfully, because I know people who really don't do well without routine, but I am able to enjoy myself, but it does get to a certain period. Do you know, and that's kind of the way I do be even thinking about it as well, like going back to like we were talking about earlier on with Jordan Peterson saying that I can't speak for everybody, but I've definitely been on some of the best holidays of my life, been in the most beautiful places in the world, and after 2 weeks it's like, yeah, it's great now, but I need to go home and get back into a routine.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I mean, if that was the be all and end all,
you do it forever.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know, but it gets to a stage where you're like,
Yeah.
oh, right, this is enough.
The holiday I love more than any, like, wipes the floor with everything. I love it. It's my happy place. It's a skiing holiday.
Nice.
You get up in the morning, you get breakfast, you go out, you ski, you do your thing, you come back. It's very structured, you know, that way. But it's connection, it's the mountains, it's exercise. Oh, I love it. Love it.
I've actually never been skiing. I'd love to go skiing.
Savage, definitely try out, man.
Yeah, I'd love it. It's definitely something that I wanted to do that I've never done, you know.
And what goes up must come down, I guess. Such holiday blues after the skiing, because I love it so much. So what? And I remember we had to cancel a skiing holiday 2 years ago. My partner's dad passed away. It was a big family dream holiday, and we had to cancel. And now obviously there was much bigger stuff going on.
But still,
you know what I mean. And the kids and all couldn't go. But it's the expectation builds, and then the down. It's crazy.
Yeah, but it is like it's you know, it's even you were saying about the holiday blues, but I'm sure, like you're saying, it gets to a point over there where you're like, oh, this was brilliant, but
let's go
back to it now. You know
yeah, definitely.
After everything you've been through, what do you think actually gives a person purpose?
Oh, what gives a person purpose? It's service to others for me. It really is. And that can be smiling, as small as smiling as someone in the street, just being nice and mannerly to people. Like, that's service for me. The smallest amount of service. It could be bringing up your kids, or it could be like homeless runs, going into prisons, doing talks. Like, I just think when you're helping other people, I have a little thing in my calendar. If you feel like shit, go and help someone.
Yeah.
And it's a selfish thing, really, because I know that'll cheer me up.
Well, I think I was listening to a billionaire that actually was, and he was like, the most important thing you can do the most selfish thing you can do is help other people.
Yeah.
He was saying, and the reason why I say that is, he says, I can literally, there's not one thing in the world now I can't buy, there's no places that I can't go, but none of that fills my cup anymore. He says, I get good feeling from helping other people now, and he says that's why I say it's the most selfish thing you can do is help other people. You know, but it does feel good to, you know, obviously I'm in a bit of a position to help people, like when they reach out to me, and you know, just people going through, and it's not even funny enough, like it's not even all the time people just going through like life-changing injuries. It must be sometimes it just does be like, oh, you know, I'm going through something. And that's one thing that I actually, not that I don't like, because they don't mean to say it, but it's like, oh, I'm going through something now, but it's not like what you went through. And it's like, everybody's problems is their own biggest problem.
It's relative.
Yeah.
It's relative.
You know, never play down what you're going through just because you're speaking to somebody who's been through a bit, you know.
Yeah. I get that with heroin all the time. People put heroin up on this pedestal of the ultimate drug or something like that. Yeah. And saying, no, I know loads of alcoholics that were way worse than me. Like, it's all relative, like, you know.
It's relative. Yeah, definitely. I always remind them of that. Like, whatever you're going through is the biggest thing in your life.
Yeah.
You know, and kind of, I suppose, like, you heard of, like, even young people killing themselves after relationships not playing out, and it's like some people that look and go, "Geez, they were only 16. Like, did they
Life
not
ahead of
realise? Yeah,
Yeah.
do you know, did they not realise that there was going to be many loves, or there was so much life to be had after that? But obviously, in the moment, they're like, "Oh, my world's over."
Over.
Do you know? So it's kind of like, I do always say that to people when they reach out. I'd be like, downplay whatever you're going through at this current time. That is your biggest. No matter how silly it might seem to what you think other people will think it's silly. Like, it's like, oh, it's not really a big thing, but it's like, no, it's a big thing for you.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah.
Before we finish up, Brian, what would you say to somebody listening who feels stuck in life right now?
Oh, do you know what? I kept on getting this question, and I'm like, I was like, what advice would I give myself? What if I felt stuck? And I think it's really, really difficult. And I'm going to give two answers to this, right? I think the best thing we can do is, someone's stuck, right? But what can you do for someone that is stuck? And I think it's easier if a person is listening and they know someone that's stuck, it's easier to help them than then helping themselves.
Yeah.
So think of someone in your life that is a little bit stuck, or could be a little bit stuck, or may not even be, but just ask someone, how are you getting on? I went out for a game at 9 holes playing golf last night, and I met this fella, never met him before. The end of the day, do you want to team up together? And we were playing for a while, waffling and all that, and he turned around to me and says, how are you, Brian? How are you really doing right now?
Yeah, I like that.
And the way he said it, he was giving me a space to really tell him how I was. The way he was saying, you know what, I'm doing really great, I really appreciate that, and I threw it back at him then as well. But go to someone and really give them the olive branch to be able to speak and make it known that you really mean it and you want to help them, that way.
You're not just asking for the sake of asking.
You're not just asking for the sake of asking, but for someone that does feel really, really stuck. And I think this whole conversation has been about it again and again and again. What you need is, if you're feeling stuck, you're probably in the forest with the worm's eye view. You can't see anything. The forest is all consuming, you're in it and you can't see it. And I like the little eagle in the chicken coop. You need to take that bird's eye view. You need to get away from the chicken coop. You need to fly above the forest and try to get a view of everything that's going on, and say to yourself, right, what's really going on here? So you need a little bit of that awareness around you. And whether that comes from just reaching out to somebody, whether it's Good Samaritans, even someone anonymous like that, contacting a therapist, a friend, or just, as we said, I think we talked about it, just putting it on a page. Start with a page. What has me stuck at the moment? Right, what has me stuck in my mind? What about my mind? Right, what about my mind has me stuck? Right, inner critic, limiting beliefs. Oh, is that even true? Like, just brain dump. Just do a brainstorm. Do a dump on a page. See what comes out. And do you know what the funny thing is? Like, when you're stuck and you feel a bit up in your head, like, it's not really real and you sort of just don't really deal with it. But as soon as you put pen to paper, ink on that page, it becomes more real. And something happens in the reality of that, whether it's a conversation with someone or something on a page in front of you, you're more likely to do something about it and keep yourself accountable to make a change. So just take that little baby step, whatever it is for you, to go one more step in trying to get unstuck.
Yeah, no, that's great advice, because I think a lot of people do kind of struggle with that feeling stuck and just lack of purpose, I suppose. They feel, lack of meaning, and what am I doing here? What should I be doing here?
And if it is a lack of purpose and a lack of meaning, like, I think you need to get, I remember hearing that phrase millions of times without knowing what it was. You need to get the rub of something, get the feel of something, and it means you need to touch it. It's not talk about it, you need to touch it. So try different things, join clubs, try different things, and maybe you'll find your purpose, you know what I mean? And in that, do the soup run, do service for different things, try stuff out, take a chance, get uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Get uncomfortable.
No, it's great advice. I really appreciate your time, bro. Thanks so much for having us.
Delighted to be on. Thanks for coming on mine as well, man.
It
was great to have the back and forth. It really was. Been a pleasure. Love this conversation. Really did.
Thank you. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. See you again next week.